Please like the video and share it so that it reaches many more people and you get sawaba, or rewards from Allah. This could be a sawabe jariyah or continuous reward for you long after you are gone.
Volume 7, Book 62, number 152. Narrated by Anas. While the Prophet was in the house of one of his wives, one of the mothers of the believers sent a meal in a dish. The wife at whose house the Prophet was, struck the hand of the servant, causing the dish to fall and break. The Prophet gathered the broken pieces of the dish and then started collecting on them the food which had been in the dish and said, "Your mother, my wife, felt jealous." Then he detained the servant till a sound dish was brought from the wife at whose house he was. He gave the sound dish to the wife whose dish had been broken and kept the broken one at the house where it had been broken. Volume 7, Book 62, number 153. Narrated by Jabir. The Prophet said, "I entered paradise and saw a palace and asked, 'Whose palace is this?' They, the angels, said, 'This palace belongs to Umar bin al-Khattab.' I intended to enter it, and nothing stopped me except my knowledge about your sense of ghira, self-respect, O Umar." Umar said, "O Allah's Apostle, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you, O Allah's Prophet. How dare I think of my ghira, self-respect, being offended by you?" Volume 7, Book 62, number 154. Narrated by Abu Hurairah. While we were sitting with Allah's Apostle, Allah's Apostle said, "While I was sleeping, I saw a woman performing ablution beside a palace. I asked, 'Whose palace is this?' It was said, 'This palace belongs to Umar.' Then I remembered his sense of ghira and returned. On that, Umar started weeping in that gathering and said, 'O Allah's Apostle, how dare I think of my self-respect being offended by you?" Volume 7, Book 62, number 155. Narrated by Aisha. That Allah's Apostle said to her, "Are you pleased with me or angry with me?" I said, "Whence do you know that?" He said, "When you are pleased with me, you say, 'No, by the Lord of Muhammad.' But when you are angry with me, then you say, 'No, by the Lord of Abraham.' Thereupon I said, 'Yes, you are right, but by Allah, O Allah's Apostle, I leave nothing but your name.'" Volume 7, Book 62, number 156. Narrated by Aisha. I never felt so jealous of any wife of Allah's Apostle as I did of Khadija, because Allah's Apostle used to remember and praise her too often, and because it was revealed to Allah's Apostle that he should give her, Khadija, the glad tidings of her having a palace of Kasab in paradise. Volume 7, Book 62, number 157. Narrated by Al-Miswar bin Makrama. I heard Allah's Apostle, who was on the pulpit, saying, "Banu Hisham bin al-Mughira have requested me to allow him to marry their daughter to Ali bin Abu Talib, but I don't give permission, and will not give permission unless Ali bin Abi Talib divorces my daughter in order to marry their daughter, because Fatima is a part of my body, and I hate what she hates to see, and what hurts her, hurts me." Volume 7, Book 62, number 158. Narrated by Anas. I will narrate to you a hadith I heard from Allah's Apostle, and none other than I will tell you of it. I heard Allah's Apostle saying, from among the portents of the hour are the following: religious knowledge will be taken away. General ignorance, in religious matters, will increase. Illegal sexual intercourse will prevail. Drinking of alcoholic drinks will prevail. Men will decrease in number, and women will increase in number. So much so that 50 women will be looked after by one man. Volume 7, Book 62, number 159. Narrated by Uqba bin Amir. Allah's Apostle said, beware of entering upon the ladies. A man from the Ansar said, Allah's Apostle, what about al-Hamu, the in-laws of the wife, the brothers of her husband or his nephews, etc.? The Prophet replied, the in-laws of the wife are death itself. Volume 7, Book 62, number 160. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, no man should stay with a lady in seclusion except in the presence of a muhrim. A man stood up and said, O Allah's Apostle, my wife has gone out intending to perform the Hajj, and I have been enrolled in the army for such and such campaign. The Prophet said, return and perform the Hajj with your wife. Volume 7, Book 62, number 161. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. An Ansari woman came to the Prophet and he took her aside and said to her, by Allah, you, Ansar, are the most beloved people to me. Volume 7, Book 62, number 162. Narrated by Salama. That while the Prophet was with her, there was an effeminate man in the house. The effeminate man said to Salama's brother, Abdullah bin Abi Umayyah, if Allah should make you conquer Taif tomorrow, I recommend that you take the daughter of Ghailan in marriage, for she is so fat that she shows 4 folds of flesh when facing you and 8 when she turns her back. Thereupon the Prophet said to us, this effeminate man should not enter upon you any more. Volume 7, Book 62, number 163. Narrated by Aisha. The Prophet was screening me with his reader garment covering the upper part of the body, while I was looking at the Ethiopians who were playing in the courtyard of the mosque. I continued watching, till I was satisfied. So you may deduce from this event how a little girl, who has not reached the age of puberty, who is eager to enjoy amusement, should be treated in this respect. Volume 7, Book 62, number 164. Narrated by Aisha. Once Sada bint Zama went out at night for some need, and Umar saw her, and recognizing her, he said to her, by Allah, O Sada, you cannot hide yourself from us. So she returned to the Prophet and mentioned that to him while he was sitting in my dwelling taking his supper and holding a bone covered with meat in his hand. Then the divine inspiration was revealed to him, and when that state was over, he, the Prophet, was saying, O women, you have been allowed by Allah to go out for your needs. Volume 7, Book 62, number 165. Narrated by Salim's father. The Prophet said, if the wife of any one of you asks permission to go to the mosque, he should not forbid her. Volume 7, Book 62, number 166. Narrated by Aisha. My foster uncle came and asked permission to enter But I refused to admit him till I asked Allah's apostle about that. He said, "He is your uncle, so allow him to come in." I said, "O Allah's apostle, I have been suckled by a woman and not by a man." Allah's apostle said, "He is your uncle, so let him enter upon you." And that happened after the order of al-hijab, compulsory veiling, was revealed. All things which become unlawful because of blood relations are unlawful because of the corresponding foster-suckling relations. Volume 7, Book 62, number 167. Narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'ud. The Prophet said, "A woman should not look at or touch another woman to describe her to her husband in such a way as if he was actually looking at her." Volume 7, Book 62, number 168. Narrated by Abdullah. The Prophet said, "A woman should not look at or touch another woman to describe her to her husband in such a way as if he was actually looking at her."